1 day on studio and 1 pre-light day. So 2 days total. And we were able to do, I believe, 7 distinct locations.
Oh, man.
Like many people in our industry, I really don't appreciate the idea that someone would want to use this technology to completely replace a human
Workforce.
person.
Yeah.
Yeah. Always an LED wall is better than a green screen. I would argue it is probably most of the time. I know I'm biased in that sense, but there are still things that have to be done to kind of make it work.
Hey guys, welcome to Nxgen Media. We are having our next podcast session, and the person who is joining us is a Northwest Regional Emmy Award winner 2022, and he was also nominated for the same in 2023, and he have bagged great number of Telly Awards for his work. He's a cinematographer, director, virtual production specialist. Is going to be joining us. Is none other than Austin Glass. I met him like a year ago, and he was an interesting guy to chat with, and he know a lot of stuff. Maybe who's a filmmaker, or who would like to become a DP, or who's anyone who would like to use the virtual production space. I believe this interview is going to be useful for all, and yeah, let's go to the session. Hey Austin, welcome to Nxgen Media podcast.
Thank you.
How are you feeling today?
I'm very good, thank you.
Thanks for coming to the show. Let's go to the session. Explain me how you feel working with the LED production world.
It's been a lot of fun. I've been working in that space for quite a few years now, and it's been a lot of fun to just use it as it's literally a canvas, but even figuratively using it as a canvas for a way of
What is it? Canvas?
Canvas.
Oh, canvas.
Like I just mean like it's a way. It's metaphorically like you're painting, right?
Okay.
But also literally like the canvas. We call that a lot of times the background, the canvas. So what we put on there, varies a lot, but it just opens up a lot of creative possibilities. And so I've really enjoyed kind of working in that space and being able to do things that aren't otherwise possible. So it's been a lot of fun.
So one of my friends, when I was trying to make a movie, we were actually having this discussion whether we need to go for a virtual production. At that time I came and met you. You remember that? So we were having this discussion whether to go with a virtual production or what else is viable for a short film,
Yeah.
And he was suggesting me that we can direct something with a green screen and then put it inside the Unreal Engine and bring the output.
Yeah.
So I was also thinking that a green screen studio rental is really cheap when compared to a virtual production, right? So I was actually thinking how the quality is going to be, and I don't have any thinking about that. What do you have to say in this?
Well, I'm a huge advocate for doing your research and picking the right tool for what you need to accomplish. Obviously, when you're producing something, there are a lot of components. There are a lot of reasons why you might decide to do something a certain way. And you have to look at the totality of everything. And quite frankly, sometimes one big factor in deciding how you accomplish something is what your budget is. So it's hard to work around that. It's like if you simply have limited funds, then a lot of times virtual production with an LED wall wouldn't necessarily be the most cost-effective way. But sometimes it is. Sometimes even if you're on a tight budget, you could choose to go with an LED screen because it saves you a lot of money. So it all depends on all these other circumstances that kind of would lead you down that path to deciding to go one way or the other. So in the case of like if it's green screen, yes, you save a lot of money on your studio rental. You're still using Unreal Engine, so you still have to produce the backgrounds. If you're trying to monitor that stuff on set, then there's some added steps hardware-wise in order for you to feed back your basically on your on-set monitoring so you can see your backgrounds keyed out in real time, if that's something that's important to you, which I would assume you'd want to do that. But then, of course, like when it comes to post-production, you will have more heavy lifting on that side. Green screen's a lot easier than it was 20 years ago, but there's still, some considerations to be made for that.
So, do you think the lighting will be different using it on set on a virtual production set than to do it on post?
It definitely would be different, but the thing that I say when we're planning a virtual production shoot using an LED background is we don't want the LED wall to do too much of the work when it comes to lighting. It's really good at reflections. It's really good at transparent or semi-transparent objects. And the things that you're photographing will, including the people, will appear more realistically in the space you're trying to make it look like they're in. However, it's how it differs from green screen is that, like, obviously with green you have spill, which you'll want to overpower that with your lights, so you'll have lights overhead and behind and all that stuff to kind of combat the spill. But like you're still lighting on an LED wall, you're still lighting with those same lights that you would use on green screen. You still need to bring in lights, because where LED walls do not excel is in their CRI, which is the quality of the light that falls upon your subjects. So it's a very low CRI, and so the colors of especially skin tones don't look natural, which is why we add, our movie lights, our traditional, lighting plans would still be relevant there, because those are much higher quality light. We have better control over it. So it's not necessarily always that, an LED wall is better than a green screen. I would argue it is probably most of the time. I know I'm biased in that sense, but there are still things that have to be done to kind of make it work and to make it feel realistic. That's true for green screen, that's true for LED, it's just different.
So what you can do with the LED screen and what you cannot do? Do you have anything that's more challenging with LED screen?
It really comes down to, I think, the style of production you're trying to do. Like, one thing that we've been able to really use, like when LED shines, it's like if we need to go to a lot of locations very quickly, we can make a plan to do that. We can do that in a way that you could not do with traditional production, and maybe even green screen to an extent. We can change our backgrounds and change our scene, everything in the foreground, in much less time than it would take, say, to do a company move. Like, you got to move your whole crew and your talent. You got to get them to a new location.
Yeah. That's going to be a
it is
pretty bad task, yeah.
And we've done stuff. So we've done stuff where it's like maybe like I'm thinking of a recent commercial that I shot that was 1 day on studio and 1 pre-light day, so 2 days total. And we were able to do, I believe, 7 distinct locations within 1 shooting day. We had to pre-light, so we can count that as 2 days. Realistically.
Yeah, that's a big thing actually. With traditional, we can actually do 3 maximum.
Well, yeah, because you realize in between setups, like not only do you have to tear all the lights down and get them back on the truck, you've got to move crew and talent. If talent requires, moho, or there's all this support that goes around that you have to plan for. And again, sometimes doing something on location is definitely the best way to go sometimes, and sometimes it's not. So if your creative is planned in such a way where it sort of plays to the strengths of that, then that's the right way to go. But a lot of times, like, I'll be the first to tell someone, you should just do this in the real world because it'll save you time or money or both, or or whatever. There's a myriad of reasons why you might want to do one versus the other.
So do we have to be really techie to be to do something with virtual production? Like, say, if someone is writing a script they will say, I need to put this camera here, the background needs to be like this, things like that. So if I'm planning the same thing with virtual production set, do I need to know all technical stuffs to get started?
Well, what I would say to someone writing is just write what your story needs. Like, just write. Like, don't think about the technical component.
Mm-hmm.
Don't think about, oh, we're going to shoot
So you
this.
mean to say, even if I have a labor amount of knowledge, I can still do it with a virtual production set?
Well, yes, but I think that's a separate concern. I would say, just from a storytelling standpoint, write the story. And don't worry about all those details.
Okay.
When it comes time to take that script and figure out how you're going to get that on film, that's when the technical comes in. And then you can say, okay, do we need to do this on a sound stage where we build a set? Do we need to do it on a virtual production stage where we build a set or don't build a set? Do we need to do this on location? Are there existing, sets or existing locations that can meet our needs? And you'll look at all those factors at that point. And then you can boil it down and say, okay, well, if we change this scene by maybe instead of having the camera wrap around 360 degrees as planned, if we don't do that anymore, then we could shoot that scene, on a sound stage where we don't have to have this full wraparound. There's all these factors, like, if you're limited by, okay, we can shoot on a virtual production stage, but it's not a full wraparound stage. Then you could say, like, let's limit our shots to work with what we have.
My question is actually, we have practiced filming in real sets. We have practiced filming in the sound sets, right?
Yeah.
But this is something that's new in terms of filmmaking. And I have to go to some place to learn about this. Okay, what is virtual production and how this actually is working to get my shot done.
Right.
Correct. So do I have to go through all that as a director or someone who's looking to make a movie?
Yeah.
Do I have to go through all that and bring that proposal to someone? Hey, see, I have got this script in my hand. This is my budget with virtual production. And if I'm well versed about virtual production, I can go ahead and do everything. My question is whether that person with has a good filmmaking knowledge, but do he still needs to worry about what if technically this goes wrong? Some technical stuff I'm asking. If he needs to be aware of that?
Yeah. I would say that there are a few key roles that do need to have some experience in that, in order to know what to expect. So obviously your DP needs to know how to shoot.
Yeah, exactly.
So experience in that helps. I would say there are a lot of very skilled, talented DPs who can very quickly learn this new tool, and what the knowledge they don't have, they can lean on someone who does know, either as a consultant or they'll have Unreal operators, stage operators who really know their stuff and can speak to all the things that a DP or even a director may not know. The director, speaking of which, it does help for that person to have some knowledge of it.
It does help, right?
Yeah, because you need to know, more importantly than knowing what's possible, you need to know what's not possible.
Yeah.
You need to know what's not going to work very well. Or if it's going to work, it's going to cost you all these other things.
Yeah.
And that just comes with experience. And for that reason, I also say producers. Producers need to have some depth of technical knowledge in that tool set. Doesn't mean they have to know how to run it. They just need to know. At least at a cursory level, they need to know how it works.
Yeah.
So that they can expect the unexpected.
So can we have this by saying, if a person who's looking to do something with virtual production needs to have a basic knowledge of what we can do or what we cannot do, right?
Right. Yeah, it helps for sure.
As a filmmaker, this is enough. But as a DP, he should go more in depth. He should have more in-depth knowledge about it, right?
It helps.
And what software are we dealing with in all this?
The software depends really on how whoever's configured the stage and whoever's operating the stage. It depends on how they have it set up, because there are a number of ways that you can do things. Obviously, the big one is if you're doing three-dimensional background. The most common one used is Unreal Engine.
Yeah.
People knowing how to use that really well and efficiently matters. Now, generally speaking, someone who knows video games, Unreal Engine for video games, probably doesn't necessarily know what it takes to build an efficiently operating scene for virtual production, because the needs are different. The way that Unreal Engine handles the scene is a little different, and so you have to make things very efficient and very photoreal in a way that video games don't require you to.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that they couldn't learn quickly, but anyway, all that to say, Unreal Engine is an important tool on the software side. A lot of times, though, we use, in our media servers, we'll do plates. So we'll use playback of either 2D images or previously captured video. Either driving plates are a great example of that, because a lot of times, it depends on the shot and how much movement you're doing, but a lot of times you don't need a fully 3D scene for a driving plate. If you know what your shots are going to be. If you don't, that's different. But if you know what your shots are going to be, you can capture plates that match the angles and focal lengths and all that stuff. And it's just a matter of taking a video on a blank canvas, moving it around to the right spot, scaling it appropriately, and then lining up your shot. So that software to run that it varies depending on who's built the wall, who's built that stage. So it could be Disguise, it could be Pixera. There are a lot of other media servers that it could be. So it all depends on what the needs are and what stage production has chosen.
So before actually talking to you, I got to see all your work, and it was executed really well actually.
Thank you.
And in some Hollywood movies, so if I'm trying to see a Hollywood movie in Netflix, I don't know actually. Only my eyes are seeing that. I don't know because I work in the VFX industry, and I know editing as well. Because as an editor, you will see all editing stuffs in the movie, right? And you as a DP, hey, this light is wrong or something like that whenever you watch a movie. So when I watch a Hollywood movie, in few movies, I see that, hey, this background is done with virtual production. Hey, this one is the one that is real. Why that is happening actually? I'm not sure that's 100% right with my eyes, but I'm kind of getting this feeling there's something is wrong with the background and the person who's walking in front of it. But when I was watching your portfolio, I cannot feel anything like that. Is there something, a trick to actually master that?
Well, the tricks depends on the scene. It's very scene dependent. It can be something as simple as, I'd say in a general sense, the first thing that I try to add to it in the pre-production phase is bring in more real stuff.
Okay.
So like bring in more tables, more flats, more, I love shooting through windows. On the windows, what are we going to do? We're going to put window dressings, because the more that we obscure the LED, the better it looks. I know that's sort of counterintuitive, but it makes sense once you're looking at it through a lens. So obscure it. Doesn't mean that it can't be 80% of the pixels in your frame, but you're kind of play to its strengths. And one of those things is the more stuff we have that's real, the more real it feels. That makes sense. That is an intuitive way to look at it. So just obscure it. Just bring in more things.
Obscure? You mean I heard that's a software name that's obscure? Do you mean?
Oh, I'm not sure. That's not what I'm talking about. No. Okay. I just mean just the physical things that are blocking the view. So if this is our LED wall, I'm going to put a plant right here.
Okay.
And then the other thing that makes it look more real is what I tell people is we have to respect the physical space. Wow. And what that means is not just what's really in the room with us, but what's not in the room but is supposed to be. So like if there's something that's virtual that's on the LED wall, we need to treat it like it's a real object, which means the distances between our subject and our LED wall might be 12 feet or 15 feet. don't put a virtual object between that, like where, you know what I mean? Like don't, there's a physical space that's virtual that is mathematically correct. And we don't want to move, like if there's a motorcycle that's virtual, we don't want to put that motorcycle, 6 feet behind the talent, because that's a physical thing. If you're going to put an object there, then bring in a real motorcycle.
Okay.
And so you're correctly drawing a line, and you're respecting that line. And you're saying everything on this side of the line is virtual, everything on this side of the line is a real physical thing. And things don't cross over between the two within the shot.
So that's a specific geometry that we need to follow while doing that shot.
And that's a great way to look at it. It is geometry. It's geometrically correct. So that's another one of the tricks. There's a number more, but
can we shoot any kind of footage with any camera, or do we have any specific camera that's good for virtual production? That's something that
the correct answer is no. Pick whatever camera, whatever lens you want.
Oh man.
Some people who operate stages might tell you need to shoot with a certain camera, and without throwing shade on anyone, that's not really the right answer. The reason they might say that is because they've tested things on their wall.
Oh, okay.
And they say, oh, we don't have problems with this camera or that camera.
So
the easy one is the global shutter cameras do really well on virtual production walls that aren't configured correctly to handle a rolling shutter camera. So the best way is to just make your wall work with every camera. But that's hard. That's expensive. So they say, well, maybe it's a lower budget rental, a certain wall, but okay, this wall only works with a global shutter camera or a rolling shutter that has a very fast readout rate. It all depends, but I like to take the approach of the fact that it's virtual production should not dictate what camera or lenses you have to choose. It should be the other way around. You should pick those things because creatively there's another reason why you like it.
Yes, you are doing it.
Yeah, ideally.
Yeah.
In the real world, we have to make compromises. And I understand that. You're always making compromises. But I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. It does. So you have worked with some big brands, say the Jungles and few other big brands, right? What are their demands, and how did you actually address that?
Try to think of some examples. That particular client may not be a good one to reference to answer that question, but there's a national spot campaign that I shot about 1.5 years ago, where the demands were high, and there were some celebrity spokespeople that were flown in and I'm sure paid a very large sum of money to be there, and for a very limited amount of time. And it's like when you have things like that going on your set, you can't afford to be the reason why we're not shooting on schedule. And so the biggest thing just becomes both preparedness and efficiency, and those things are closely related. But preparedness means when we start setting up a scene, things work the way they're supposed to. And it doesn't mean that things don't break or happen unexpectedly, but we can quickly mitigate the issues, solve the issues, and move on. Because again, like if production is paying $200,000 to shoot for that day, I mean like stage rental, talent costs, every crew member, if they're spending $200,000 on that day, you need to be ready. And like hopefully everybody's on their A game, and you can solve problems as quickly as possible. That's one thing, the preparedness. And then the other one is efficiency. This means that if a problem does arise that costs you time, can you efficiently, you're using efficiency, can you get back on schedule? And some of that comes down to how well things are planned and like your shooting schedule, and say, are we trying to do too much in one day? Sometimes that's the case, and it's like, well, we can't finish our day because we tried to fit too much into it or whatever, but you can make up for those mistakes with efficiency. So kind of knowing, both of those things, again, they go hand in hand, but the pressure can be a little high for those kinds of days, because you just have to have respect for the amount of money that the client is spending. It's like, make sure that they feel like things are going well and they're getting the things they need, and that they feel like they're not wasting their money.
Will they be okay if that is an extension of a shoot day or something like that?
I have not run into a producer that's been happy about that. Not that I've ever been in that exact situation. I can't imagine any producer would be happy if I told them that we have to schedule another shoot day. It does happen. It might be more likely on a longer run thing. A lot of the stuff I've done is short run stuff. It's like commercial stuff. It's like we're working on something for maybe 5 days. In which case, we better finish it. Like adding 1 day to a 5-day schedule is a big deal.
It's a big deal, yeah.
It's a big deal. Adding 1 day to like a 30-day schedule, I'm sure nobody's happy about that, but it's percentage-wise, it's a lot smaller portion, I'd imagine, but I've not been in that situation, so I can't speak to that. Yeah.
So I don't know whether you like this question. So do you think AI is a boom or a burden in terms of filmmaking and as a team player?
Yeah, I think the best way to look at that is using it as a tool to improve an artist's either efficiency or end product. Right. Maybe we spend the same amount of time, but what we get is better than what we would have gotten. Like many people in our industry, I really don't appreciate the idea that someone would want to use this technology to completely replace a human
workforce
person. Yeah. That seems cold, and not just in the sense that it's it would be cold to do that to an entire industry of people, but cold in the sense to where what it's creating is not human. And we're talking about a generally creative, artistic medium, and as a viewer, I want to see something that has a soul, that has it's that intangible thing. It's like, and I know AI is getting better at making things seem real, and maybe for a short shot, you could probably cut in an AI-generated image in the middle of a piece that had a bunch of real stuff, and I probably wouldn't tell the difference if it was done well. And I know that's getting better, but we still need humans to create this stuff.
Yeah.
And again, like I just don't want to see AI just writing all the scripts for us and creating all of the imagery for us. But again, like maybe it's a tool. Like I've used it as a way of communicating my ideas. It's like I'm not terribly good at drawing, so maybe I have a hard time showing you, like you're the director and I want to show you this idea. It's like, I think we should do something that looks like this. Well, I can't really draw it, so I can look at reference images, things that other people have shot in the past, which I still do, plenty of that. Or I might say, well, no one's shot something that looks quite like what I have in my head, so I can try to generate that with AI. And that's something where it's like, it's used as a tool to help me communicate my creative ideas. When people use it that way, I think that's its strength.
Yeah.
But right now there's a lot of hype around it, and we have a very emotional reaction to it because we feel threatened by it. That's valid. Yeah, I don't want it to go away. I just don't want it to be some magic bullet that studios and and clients think that this just makes everything so much cheaper. And, because I like shooting, I like doing real things.
So Austin, you are actually directing a movie, right? I saw you showed me some clips that day.
Mm-hmm.
Could you tell me more about it?
Yeah, that I have been working on a film that I hope to make one day, but at this point, so here basically it started with an idea for something. As you know, I'm a DP. I like to shoot. That's kind of my focus. But I had this idea that occurred to me for a story, and I wanted to write it. So I'm not a writer. I'll be the first to tell you, I'm not a writer. I understand story. I know a good script when I read one, but that doesn't mean I know how to actually write it. So I decided, well, I really want this story to become a real thing. So I started writing something myself. And it's not the first thing I've written, but it's the first feature that I've written, and it's been a learning process. It's taken me quite a long time to write it. And about a year or so into the process, there's a lot of research, and it was sort of a kind of a background project for me. About a year or so into that process, I decided as a visual person, I want to see it. I see it in text form, but my brain, I want to see things. I want to photograph them. So I decided with my business partner and I, we decided that we would shoot proof of concept, which we spent a little money on, and we made basically we had costumes made and built some sets, and were able to pull something off through just like an amazing crew. Recruited a lot of my friends to help with that. But
how many people crew was there?
On set, we probably had at most around 12 people, I want to say, any given day. Some days were less.
So is it the crew as 12 people and the actors are different count?
I don't know exactly.
Okay.
I think I'd have to count. I'd probably say the wrong answer. But something around there.
Okay.
The cast was, I think, 6 people. They weren't all on set at the same time, really, ever. Yeah, it's around 12, maybe
Okay.
14 people or so. The basic premise is that it takes place in the early 70s. So this is during the Cold War between the Soviets and the Americans. And the idea is that basically there are a couple of cosmonauts that make an emergency landing. When they're coming down, they land in Texas. So, and this is a drama, historically plausible, but this never actually happened that we know of. It's all meant to be. It's historically and scientifically plausible. Like this could happen, and so we kind of wanted that edge of realism. So we spent a lot of effort getting our sets and our wardrobe. Like we have.
How do you
suits.
do it? Do your sets and?
Well, I think the two best components were the spacesuit that we made.
Oh, you made?
Yeah. Well, we had about 90% of it made overseas with a friend of my business partner who runs a clothing manufacturing business in the Philippines. So he asked her to help with it. She made, again, it was about 90% of the suits, and then we imported those and then added some trim to them. And Brian, my business partner, had made, like, he 3D printed like the rings, like the gloves are meant to lock in, and it didn't all function the way it was meant to, but it looks like it does. So he made these out of 3D printing rings. He made the helmets, which were actually fairly complicated, all based off of reference images. We wanted everything to look as authentic as possible. And then we also did, we made the interior of the Soyuz descent module. And there's a very interesting console that they had in the early 70s where they used an actual physical globe of the Earth mounted inside their console. So nowadays we just have a screen that shows you the Earth and where you are over the Earth. They had an actual globe that rotated and had a little crosshairs so they could see both where over the Earth they are right now. They could flip a switch or turn a knob, and then it would spin and show them, if you land right now, this is where you would land. It showed them approximately. And landing in the wrong place is a big part of the story.
That's interesting.
So we made that. I learned a lot about scenics and set design that I did not know. I mean, I already had some experience with woodworking and stuff, just kind of on the side, but we made the globe actually spin. So we figured out, first of all, we made a map, like in Illustrator, Photoshop, and it's like, how do you put? Here's a question for you: how do you put a two-dimensional map on a three-dimensional sphere?
Yeah, we should actually convert it to a 3D, right?
Well, yeah, there's a process there. See, I had to learn.
That's a
this,
process, yes.
and it's not as easy as it seems.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, you've seen a globe, and somebody did it, and it looks amazing.
Yeah.
How do they make it look amazing? It's not easy.
Yeah.
So we printed it. We cut out these, and there's all this process that we figured it all out, and I think it looks pretty decent. But we printed these things.
It's actually great. Maybe you can give some glimpse at the
for sure.
video too. Yeah, it was great actually.
And then we made it spin. So I took my son's. He has a Lego robotics set, and so it's literally run by Lego. So we can control it with an app on an iPad. So I would basically, it spins basically on one axis, and then we could pick. Like we could set these little endpoints. So start at this point, end at this point, travel, like spin at this speed. And then when I hit a button, quickly go from this to there.
Oh.
And so the idea, so whenever the actor turns the knob, we hit a button on the app and it goes, and it shows and then we get that shot in camera. And it was a lot of fun. So I'm getting a little sidetracked on that. It was a great experience. None of that has anything to do with shooting, but
no, you're good to talk anything.
But anyway, I learned a lot on that experience. It was a lot of fun.
And you also mentioned me when I was watching that video. You said you used your TV to use some of the atmosphere, right?
Yes. Yeah. So and that was the thing. Is like on that particular shoot, we weren't able to get into a virtual production stage. But I was like, I had all this experience. I imagined shooting it in virtual production. It just didn't work out this time.
And that really worked out really well. Even I couldn't actually figure it out. Oh, hey, this is something different or something like this. That was totally like a full quality feature film.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And that it ended up being actually the right solution for it because, I was always, as we were designing things, I was always like, man, the windows that they had back in the 70s in space, the windows are all so small. I want to see more out there. Like, it's not some futuristic sci-fi where you have massive windows in your spaceships. These are tiny windows. And that helped us because it means I don't need a big LED screen out there. So we took a TV, it was like a 70 or 80 inch TV that was already at our soundstage where we were shooting the interiors. So we just put it out there and we put, actual space imagery of the Earth in low Earth orbit, from above, and we just put it out the window.
Honestly, that was very inspiring to me. So that teaches me, on that day I had this enlightenment that there is no one way to make something. Whatever works for you, just go into it.
Absolutely. And that's the thing, it's like we didn't spend however many
like
thousands
fortune.
of dollars, to do something with an LED wall.
Put your kidney out there. Hey, I want to make a movie.
Yeah, exactly. Whatever works. And in that particular scene, where there is a scene in that set where they're re-entering the atmosphere, so we added the plasma from outside the window. We would have had to do that even if we shot it on a full LED wall, because that's not the kind of effect that an LED wall would excel at. It would look like the plasma is way out there. So it's like if you want plasma building up right outside the window, which is what it looks like in real life.
What do you mean by plasma?
Plasma is just as any ship is traveling 17,000 miles an hour as it's orbiting the Earth. When it comes down into the atmosphere, it begins to slow down, and the pressure, it's not actually friction. People think of it as friction, but it's not friction at that time. The pressure of that ship, forcing all of that atmosphere out of the way, it's a compression thing. It forms a plasma, and maybe I'm explaining this wrong, or saying something incorrect, but the plasma is that shape that you see out, as you watch a ship re-enter, on a movie or something. It's like that fiery trail that is forming at the bottom of the re-entry and coming up around it. I have an example of that in a CGI shot from the trailer that you could show, but that's called plasma. So it's not fire, it's plasma. So we wanted that to look, it's kind of got a little purpley, orangey type of look to it most of the time, so we kind of replicated that with just a VFX shot.
How much you have completed in that movie?
The proof of concept is finished.
Okay.
That's done. That's ready for investors to view. So the next step is, my script is not finished. I sidelined that while we worked on the proof of concept, and that took quite a bit of time.
Okay.
But I'm back at it, so I'm working on the script. I have about 80 pages or so right now. I'm sure once I finish the story, I'll trim that down some more. But that's something. Once the script is ready, we'll take it to investors, and then we'll use the proof of concept as a way of kind of communicating those ideas to them.
Now I have a deep question. So there are many people looking out to become a cinematographer, right? And to go and shoot something, there is a point of view with everyone that I need a full frame camera. There are so many sensors out there, like APS-C, 1/3, I think, MFT, something like that. Is it really necessary to have a full frame to go on a longer run, or I'm talking about a longer term of use?
Yeah, I think not. Is your question within the context of just production in general, storytelling?
Like someone who's starting out as a DP, do they actually need a full frame to start and to go on a longer run? Because they're investing some money on a camera, right?
Yeah, I think what they need to do is they need to shoot something. So whatever gets you there to shoot something, that's what you should do. Now, if you have saved up some money, get the best thing that you can afford, but don't forget that actually shooting things costs money. Not just the gear, but you've got to spend money to make the thing that you're trying to make. So as long as you're not completely neglecting that, you say, well, I'm going to need, even on a very scrappy, friends working together for a common goal component, it's still going to cost you something to shoot what you want to shoot. So don't forget about that. But I think it's less about the gear. If you want to go with if you can afford something that's full frame, you like the results, you like using the camera, then go for it. But I would not say that that's necessary for universally. Not everybody needs that.
So if there's a smaller space, having a full frame at that point of time will be better, right? Like, say we are using it in a very small area. and we have to place a camera there. At that point of time, do you think having a full frame would be better? Because it will crop out the other areas, right?
I don't necessarily, like, in general terms, I don't really think that's too much of a factor.
There are ways to actually improve that?
The Super 35 or APS-C is actually a very useful format. It's a compromise. It's not obviously not as big as full frame. There are a lot more lenses that cover that size.
Oh.
And so it's a lot more affordable because you have more options, and you can grab some old lenses that don't cost a lot of money and they'll cover it, and you can have a lot of character and not show a lot. If we're talking about field of view, yes, when you take this lens, same lens, and you put it on a full frame camera versus a Super 35, yes, you'll have a wider field of view with the full frame camera. But you could choose a different lens. If you had a Super 35 camera, you could choose a wider lens, up to a point. Like obviously, like the wider you go, the more distortions.
Yeah, the fisheye lens.
Yeah, maybe that's what you want. Maybe it's not. But I don't know. There are a lot of factors to that. So I mean, if we're talking about up and coming filmmakers, somebody who wants to get started and not spend a lot of money, I'd look very seriously at Super 35. But maybe that person is like, well, I'm also a photographer, and maybe they're already somehow creating images with, like, still images generally are better with a full frame camera. So maybe they need that because they want to use it for both. It's like, well, then maybe you should get a full frame camera because it has more utility for you. I'm only using that as an example. Like, someone could have, there are any number of reasons why choose one or the other, but I just say get the best camera you can afford.
Yeah.
I mean,
full frame is actually an obsession.
I know. And it's the same thing. It's like a lot of times I'll recommend full frame cameras to productions for the rentals that we get. I have a camera in-house that's Super 35 or almost Super 35 just because I want to have a camera that I can just pick up and shoot with. But whenever production asks me what to shoot with, it's like, well, if we have a budget for a rental, then we should rent something else because that's not really what my camera's for. Yeah, I'll get more money if I can rent it out, but if it's not the right tool for the job, then they won't hire me again. Because that guy just wanted to make more money off of us. So, you know what I mean? So it's like, let's pick the right tool for the job.
Exactly.
So, I mean, again, like when I'm doing virtual production stuff, it's like full frame sets us up better for success because of more issues on the LED and all that stuff. So there's all kinds of reasons why we choose one versus the other.
In your career, you have been a cinematographer, right? And you have also been a camera operator, right? Does every cinematographer needs to know how to operate a camera? What do you say? Because I have worked with a cinematographer before, and they know to use a camera, but not all the cameras.
Yeah. Well, I don't think there are two main paths towards being a cinematographer, like on a bigger set like that. One is through camera, and one is through lighting. So, one could argue that, at least I feel like most of like my fellow DPs who, that I'm friends with, like I have one friend who is a DP and he came up through lighting. He knows really well how to work a camera anyway. Like just because he didn't work in camera department in that pathway, like in that way, doesn't mean that he doesn't know. So I think there is a lot of crossover, and you're going to learn at that level. You're going to learn those skills one way or the other. I came up from camera department, and that's kind of how I learned. And then over time, of course, but I had to learn kind of lighting like as a second skill rather than the other way. I think at the level of as a cinematographer, you kind of have to know both areas because you're in charge of both departments. So you have to be able to speak the language of your camera team. That includes an operator if you have one, and also your lighting team. You know, talk to your gaffer and your dollar grips and all those kinds of roles to make sure that you guys are speaking the same language.
So I understand, like, as a cinematographer, you need to know the language of the camera operation instead of getting to know in detail about how to operate and things like that. Correct?
Sorry. So back to your original question about knowing the ins and outs of the camera. You don't need to know. As a DP, I still greatly prefer to operate my own camera. I think a lot of DPs are the same way. That's probably, and I'm just speaking off the cuff, I don't know if this is statistically true, but I feel like most DPs probably are the same way. They prefer to operate. But you're still going to have operators working under you, either as a B camera or steady cam or whatever. So there's still that role, but do you need to know how to work the camera ins and outs? No, not really. That's the AC's job. That's kind of their wheelhouse is knowing the camera really well. So even as a DP who's operating, most settings that we change on the camera, like when we're on set, I don't do those myself. I'll ask the AC to do it, even if I know how to do it. Just because that's his or her, that's their thing. So, that's their domain. So I want to respect that and say, okay, well, if there's an important change that has to be made to the camera, they should make it because then they know where it's set to. So if I'm across the room and I say, hey, what's our ISO set to right now? They're going to know because they're the ones who changed it.
Yeah.
Now I'll still change, aperture in D or whatever to my liking. That's fair game, but it's just kind of respecting the roles. I think helps, but that also means we can operate. Like I can operate another camera that I've never used before, just as well as something that I'm very familiar with. Because again, I don't need to know everything about the camera in order to do a good job. That's someone else's job.
I have one question. So you can actually need not answer if you don't want to. Why you have this name, Austin Glass?
Yeah.
I'm specifically putting this question because I feel glass and cinematography somewhere it connects.
Yeah. Oh, sure. No, and I wish I were clever enough to come up with some funny little way to tie that together. Obviously, like when we're talking about lenses, we often call it glass for short, as a slang jargon type of a term. So we'll say, we'll just call it glass. It's like, man, if I could come up with a saying, maybe one of your viewers could comment an idea if they have something clever for me to say. No, I thought about that though. It'd be good marketing for me to work that in. But yeah.
And that one sticks to my mind. So when I see you, say if I'm having the first impression on you, you having a glass on your face, and that sounds like my name is Austin Glass. Oh, yeah. That's kind of as a package,
Yeah.
So that's your born name.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And I mean that's the thing too about your, the name that you're born with is that you forget about it. You don't think about it. Like I'm sure other people who have names that are also words used for something else.
Yeah,
I don't think about the
I know, like one person who I meet, his son's name is London, and daughter's name is Legend. Yeah. It's good. So, you talk a little bit about your family.
So I have my family is my wife, and I have 3 boys, ages 9, 7, and now 4. They all have birthdays coming up in the next few months though, so they're all
happy birthday.
Thank you. The first birthday is in 11 days, so that'll be fun. But my 4-year-old will become a 5-year-old. But so we just moved here to the Atlanta area. Only a few. Well, I guess we're coming up on about 9 months or so ago. So most of my career has been in Seattle, and so we live there. And, we like living there a lot, but we felt like this area was kind of right for us, so we all just packed up, got in a moving truck, and drove across the country, and here we are. So, but they like it a lot here, so we're enjoying it. Of course, the summers we're just getting started on that, so it's a little hot. We'll get used to that though.
Yeah. How supportive are they when since you're into a filmmaking field?
Yeah, well, it is hard on them. They do root for me a lot. A lot of times you get called away on a job. Like I've had a lot of jobs that are out of the state. So I've had to either drive somewhere or fly somewhere and be gone for many days at a time. The last couple of months, I've been working out of state for longer stretches. So I was gone for 14 days was the longest run, and then home for a couple weeks and then out again. So it's hard on the family to be gone for so long, for sure. I do like working. Hopefully more of the work could be closer to home. I can be home in the evenings, but no, they're very supportive, and even though it's hard to be apart, so they work hard to make that work. So
actually, what I take, if I'm getting a work out of the state, me and my wife will plan like, okay, let's go out of the state and explore the whole area, and then come back.
Yeah. Well, that's good. I mean, that's like
you'll have free place to stay, free food, everything will be covered.
It's a free vacation. That's the thing. It's like I got to the point where I wasn't really almost never take vacations, because like when I'm working, traveling for work, maybe I'll plan an extra day or something, But I'm by myself. I don't have my family with me. It's not really the same thing. But as long as somebody else is paying for me to be there, then I may as well make the most of it.
Yeah.
That just becomes an excuse not to prioritize actual real vacation. That's planned and intentional, and the destination that you want to go to. But I did a lot of stuff overseas for a few years prior to the pandemic.
Where have you been?
I did a lot of stuff in Africa and a little bit of Central America.
Wow.
So as part of that, it's like either I plan a day or two extra at the destination, or plan a day like on a layover. Like one of my good friends lives in the London area, so like I visited him basically on someone else's dime. Where it's like if I just plan a long layover, I can spend some time somewhere and see something I wouldn't normally see. So a lot of times when you travel to Africa, they route you through, depending on what airline, of course, but sometimes the best one for that destination is Emirates, which routes through Dubai. So it's like I've gotten to see Dubai, which is kind of a cool city, and I wouldn't, these are places I wouldn't necessarily go like on vacation if I were bringing my whole family. So it's nice to be able to see the world.
Yeah.
Again, when someone else is paying for it, you get to see so much more of the world. So
exactly.
Yeah.
I'm having some rapid fire questions with
you.
Yeah. So virtual production or traditional set? Which one you prefer?
Virtual production.
Favorite camera?
Alexa Mini LF.
LED wall or green screen?
Well, LED wall.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were the master, right?
Yeah.
What do you prefer? Freelance project or studio project?
Probably freelance. Yeah.
A lot of freedom.
Yeah.
DP or a movie operator?
Oh, DP. Yeah.
Music video or commercial?
That's a hard one. Probably music video. Yeah.
I was expecting that answer.
There's a lot of variables to that. Like you could have music videos that are not fun.
Yeah.
And you can have commercials that are very fun also. So it kind of, but I think overall creatively.
Yeah, creative music videos
Yeah.
stands a bit ahead.
Yeah.
Action shot or dramatic scenes.
Action.
What's your most challenging project ever?
In 2017, I somehow got this idea in my head that I should shoot a Western with a shootout scene that coincided with the total solar eclipse that happened that year, the totality path. So logistically, that was incredibly difficult. And in execution, it did not quite work out as well as I had hoped because of all of the difficulties. But it was still successful. So that was, yeah.
Is it out in the streaming?
No, it used to be. If you dig hard enough, you probably could find it. But it's not currently available. It struggled, I think, in a few areas that I don't feel like represented the skill level of the people involved, not to their own fault. So I thought it best if that wasn't. It's easy to find. But I can tell you right now, I know of a place where you can view it publicly. But I'm not going to tell you where it is. It's called Western Soul. S-O-L is how soul is spelled. Soul like the sun. Western Soul. It was fun, but you're going to have to do a little legwork to find it.
I'll get you more details after this.
Okay, all right.
Go to lens for any shoot.
That does change over time. I will caveat that. I really like these days. I really like Atlas.
Have you worked with the low budget lens that's coming out, 50mm artisans, the artisan lenses and Silui?
Yeah, and actually I used on my space proof of concept movie we talked about, I used vintage Zeiss B-speed lenses with a Surui anamorphic adapter on the front, which was kind of a fun way to do it because we have something very classic and has that vintage iconic look to it. Especially because that lens has a unique bokeh shape, and then we add the anamorphic adapter. We stretched it a little bit, which was very interesting. So there's a lot of very interesting things you can try with that. So the bokeh look was very unique. It's like a triangle, a rounded triangle, but not perfect. Like the shape was compressed a little bit. So it looked very interesting. It's not a very rapid fire answer of me, but
no, I want in detail.
Yeah.
It's my personal question.
Yeah.
Favorite film you have worked on?
Seattle, where I lived before I moved here, didn't have a lot of films.
Sorry, come again.
Seattle, where I lived before, didn't have a lot of films made. So I mean, most of my work has been commercial, but the films I worked on usually as an operator.
It can be a commercial.
I mean, if we look at it from that perspective, honestly, the proof of concept that I shot last year is something I'm really proud of. I had a lot of fun on. So I don't know if it's fair of me to answer in that way just because that was my project where I got to do whatever I wanted rather than serving someone else's vision, which is there's a lot of value to, but anyway.
Yeah, always it's special, right?
Yeah.
What's your inspiration, biggest inspiration in the industry?
I think it might depend on what, it's hard to answer. It might depend on what, like inspiration for what exactly, because
for your way of work and
I mean, if it's image, if we're talking about images, we're talking about lighting and composition, you know, I feel like maybe this is a cliche answer, but it's true for me. Is I look a lot to the likes of Roger Deakins for a lot of that inspiration. There are a lot of really great cinematographers that are maybe not as well known, but are creating works that are really good. So when it comes to storytelling, I look at inspiration of the likes of Steve Conrad, is a showrunner, kind of writer type person who just has a lot of really creative ideas I found through his projects.
One piece of gear you can't live without.
I'm gonna take the camera side of that off of the table because obviously you need that, and I think that's kind of too easy of an answer.
Yeah. Apart from the camera.
Apart from the camera, a good monitor. I'll insist on a good monitor that we trust. Color calibrated. My own monitor is a small Flanders. I know that it's, I know what its service history is. I know if it's trustworthy or not. I'm familiar with all the tools on it that I need. So I know that the image I see, I know how to analyze it quickly to make those quick decisions. The monitor, here's the thing. Some people wonder, it's like, oh, you use a light meter, to check levels on, light intensity and all that stuff. It's like, yeah, sometimes, but in this day and age, maybe this is controversial, but the monitor is the new light meter. And I'm not going to say I'm the one who invented that thought. I've heard someone say that before, and I don't remember who, but it resonates with me because the tools that are built into modern monitoring solutions will tell you more about your image and your exposure than a light meter does. Doesn't mean there's not value to the values that you see on a light meter readout, but it's not as useful anymore when you have a good monitor that you trust. At least not to me.
Okay. What's your dream project?
I want to make. Right now, I want to make my movie. My space movie.
Good.
That's my dream project. That'll change. If you ask me this next year, I'll say something else. But for now, that's what I want.
What's your? Okay, we are done with rapid fire.
Yeah.
And really well.
Thank you.
Do you have any advice for people who are getting into the industry?
Yeah, just shoot something. Just get out there and shoot. Make mistakes when it's easy to make mistakes.
Nice.
If you become famous and you make a mistake, then people will notice. I mean, within your industry, right? Not everybody pays that close attention. But if you make mistakes when nobody's watching, it's easier to recover from that. So just go make mistakes. Just go shoot something, and it's okay if it doesn't look good. Just figure out what you don't like about it, and then try to do better next time. That's all there is to it.
It's a pleasure having you, Austin.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being with us. You had really answered all our questions. It was really insightful. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
При входе в атмосферу произошла авария. Весь экипаж «Союза-11» задохнулся. Представляю, как бы я был в таком одиночестве.
40 минут там ничего не ждет.
Мы тебя вызволим. Нужно только сообразить, как.
Продетходить.
Пожар! Одеть гермошлем! Необходимо немедленно приземлиться.
Куда мы приземляемся?
Who is your English?
You know, they're gonna slip up. When they do, we'll get them.
I have your intel.
I don't have time for this.